ReliaQuest mental performance coaches Dr. Nicole Detling and Derin McMains interview top performers across multiple industries to unpack the strategies and the mindset they use to get the job done. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, Doc, this is a fun episode where we are actually on the campus of the University of Utah, meeting right in their meeting room with the head football coach at Utah, Kyle Whittingham. For those of our listeners that don't follow college football quite as closely, tell everyone what a legend he is.
Yeah, man. What an incredible man and an incredible legend as a coach as well. University of Utah head football coach Kyle Whittingham is currently tied as the second longest tenured coach at the same school in NCAA FBS. He's about to enter his 21st season at the helm and 32nd season overall at the University of Utah here in 2025. His 167 wins ranks fifth among all active FBS head coaches. Utah has finished with a winning record in 17 of his 20 years as head coach. The Utes have had 7 seasons with at least 10 wins, and he's legendary for his postseason success. His now 11 bowl wins ranks second among all active coaches. Now, individually, Whittingham has had 35 players make All-America teams during his time as head coach. His players have also won national awards in the Ray Guy Award, the Lou Groza Award, and the Ted Hendricks Award. Now, in addition to Utah's in-season success, Whittingham also has a reputation for developing NFL talent on a yearly basis. Utah had almost 30 selections in the 8 drafts from 2017 to 2024, which ranks as the most among current Big 12 members. Overall, Whittingham has signed 123 of his players to NFL contracts. Not just about football, Utah has also excelled academically under Coach Whittingham, where Utah football received public recognition from the NCAA for posting multi-year academic progress report in the top 10% of all athletic teams in the country, not just football, but all teams in the country. 2 different years, Utah was given a 100% graduation success rating and has eclipsed 90% over the last 7 years. And if that's not enough, not only is Coach Whittingham a 3-time conference coach of the year, he is also a 3-time national coach of the year, and he's been a finalist several other times. Pretty incredible.
Stud, absolute stud. I think our listeners are going to love this interview. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's a great place to check this one out. You'll see us right in the meeting room, right in the football facility there. And so, but let's cut to the interview. Check it out. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. My name's Derin McMains, and I'm alongside my co-host, as always, Dr. Nicole Detling. Doc, how's it going?
You know what? Today is a fantastic day.
Right?
Because those of you who are watching on YouTube can see this. The rest of you probably need to go to YouTube to watch this.
Fact.
But we are at the University of Utah in the football facility in the team auditorium room, and we are here interviewing head coach Kyle Whittingham. Kyle, how are you today?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Are you kidding? We are so grateful to have you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of your hard-earned wisdom with our listeners.
Okay, you bet.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Coach Whitt, thank you for just creating time and space. And just to kick us off, like, how would you describe Utah football? Like, what's the culture, the mindset?
Utah football, grit, I think is a good adjective. Is that right? Adjective?
Yeah.
I think it's the right term.
Yeah.
It's gritty. Mental toughness is a big part of what we preach and what we subscribe to. Family is another buzzword that is big around here. We feel like we're a very close-knit group. We're a very diverse group. I think we're the most diverse team in America. We're almost exactly 1/3 African-American, 1/3 Caucasian, 1/3 Polynesian. And no team in the country has that unique proportional blend that we have. At least we don't think so. And so we're proud of that. We coexist just fine with all the different backgrounds. We have also age diversity. We have 18-year-old freshmen and then 25, 26-year-old seniors who have a big LDS contingency on the team. We're almost 50% LDS, and a lot of those LDS athletes go on missions, church missions for 2 years, which puts a big age gap in our program as well. And then all different religions, backgrounds. I mean, we feel like we're kind of a melting pot of sorts, and it works for us. It works.
I love that idea around family.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for breaking that down. And Like how do you drive that idea of family? Because I'm sure when some players show up early on, that's maybe a new experience, right? And
It
so,
is.
Like how do you drive that idea of family?
Well, first of all, we have an adage or a mantra, I guess you could say, of when the new guys come in, you will become us. We will not become you. You will become us. And that's something that we subscribe to. And it really falls upon us as coaches and the players that are already in the program to indoctrinate, to educate, to let the new guys know just how we do things, because we have a standard, and the standard is the standard and always will be. And so we demand that everybody that comes into the program live up to that standard.
I absolutely love this. And I have to say, from having been part of the program for 5 years, one of the things that really impressed me is I've been a part of multiple programs who say we're family and family is important, but it's more of a word on the wall, or it's what you say when you break. And one of the things that impressed me about this program from the very beginning was you truly live the idea of family. And I appreciate how you broke that down of how that starts, but can you talk a little bit more about how that really drives the program also?
Yeah, well, we genuinely care about each other. Coaches, players aren't a means to our end here. We're not just utilizing these players' skills and talents to get to the next job or self-serving. Our coaches genuinely care tremendously about our players. They're father figures, mentors to the players. And in order to work here, work for me, you have to have that mentality and that attitude. And so that's a big driving factor in the culture and in the family aspect of the culture is treating the players like your own sons and making sure that if all we do here is make these guys better football players, we failed. We want to make them better people, equip them for life, make sure they get their degree. We have a 96% graduation rate, which is top 10 in the nation. Mm-hmm. And so we try to do our very best to prepare these guys for success in life. Football ends for everybody at some point. Playing wise, there's nobody that's immune to that. If you have a 10-year NFL career, great. Now you're 32 years old. Now what for the next 50 years, 40 years? And so we try to make sure that we are teaching and instilling values and work ethic, accountability, all that type of thing, all those types of things into these young men.
That's perfect. And I will echo that from having been as a part of the
program.
I have seen that. That is not just words around this program. Like, you absolutely promote that in some really amazing ways. And now as a mom of college-age kids, which is crazy, I would appreciate that, right? As knowing I'm sending my son to someone who cares as much about his development as a human as they do about his development as an athlete. And I just want to echo that, because that is absolutely the way things are done.
Well, I appreciate that, and you'd know as well as anybody. Like you said, you've been here. We're in the program for several years, and it's not just lip service, as you said. And the coaches' responsibility is to love the players. The players' responsibility is to love each other.
Yeah.
That's one of the things
That's
that we believe.
perfect. Let's get into, so you've had an incredible career, posting an overall record of 167 wins.
Okay,
How's
I'll take your word for that.
Okay. And that ranks 5th among all active coaches at FBS schools. And you have a bowl record of 11-6. You're the bowl guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which is tied for the most among all active coaches. You've finished with a winning record in 17 out of the 20 years you've spent as a head coach. All right. Last season was rough.
Yes, it was.
We'll just say that. It was not one of those winning seasons. And I know you hate to lose more than you even love to win.
Absolutely.
And it was very painful for you. But we don't need to rehash the past. What I want to kind of focus on is, what is that mindset shift that you're promoting with the team going into this next season?
Well, first of all, no panic. I mean, we feel like our process is really good. We think it's been successful. It's withstood the test of time. Now, last year we had some drop off. We know that. You never want to make excuses, but we did have a rash of injuries that we had to deal with. But again, not excuses, just things that we needed to overcome that we didn't do a good enough job of overcoming. We have a really good nucleus of players returning this year. We feel really good about the new league that we're in. We got a taste of it last year, but we feel like we're ready to compete and challenge for a championship. And that's where we're at. We got a lot of confidence, and we're just treating last year as a blip on the radar, I guess, a bump in the road, I guess. Perfect. You could say, yeah.
What is it about the Big 12 that is different than the Pac-12? Like,
I would say, first of all, when we're in the Pac-12, especially the last few years, the quarterback play was off the charts. I mean, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Penix. I mean, we had. We did a research. I think we've played against 16 of the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So some number that's pretty hefty, 14 or 16. But that's something that really stood out in the Pac-12 was the incredible quarterback play. Not that the quarterback play in the Big 12 isn't good, but sure, that level was special in the Pac-12. Maybe a little more physicality in the Big 12 than what we had in the Pac-12. The perimeter, there's pretty comparable perimeter-wise with the skill players, but maybe just not as prolific throwing the football because of the quarterback situation that we had in the Pac-12, and maybe a little more physical and more run-heavy than what we faced in the Pac-12.
So does that change the profile of the student athlete that you're recruiting? Because I think about business leaders, like they might go into a new market, right? And I think about maybe, college football, it's like, well, you're kind of in a new market, maybe a different way that the game's played, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm just curious, like how do you think about that?
It does not affect our recruiting. We have the same recruiting model. It affects schematics a little bit. You got to gear up more for the run game than you did in the Pac-12 on defense. Offensively, we're going through a change right now, a transition. We've got a new offensive coordinator with a new scheme, and there's a lot of excitement there. But it still boils down to blocking and tackling. I mean, that's whoever does that best, 9 times out of 10 is going to win. And so you're not going to trick people. You just got to get the best athletes that you can, teach them how to block, teach them how to tackle, and that's your formula.
Blocking and tackling. I love this, right? The fundamentals.
Fundamentals.
And so how do you keep the coaches and the student athletes locked in on the fundamentals? Because everybody gets excited about the Instagram plays,
right,
and ESPN. Like,
right,
how do you bring them back to let's keep it simple, fundamentals?
Well, you got to preach it. You got to teach it. You got to emphasize it. As coaches, you're pretty much going to get what you emphasize, and that's a point of emphasis every time we step on the field is blocking and tackling and the fundamentals of it, and we don't stray from that. And I think that's a big part of success in coaching is consistency. Demanding the same things day in and day out, and coaches. Part of my job is to coach the coaches, and you cannot become bored with the fundamentals. You can't, there's certain drills, we call them EDD, everyday drills, that you have to do. I don't care how monotonous it is, how boring it might be. It's paramount to success, and so you better, if I don't see them working on that every single day, we're going to have an issue, because we're not there to entertain the guys, we're there to make them better football players, and also I think there's a certain mental toughness aspect in that for them to come out and know, hey, it's going to be the same old thing, but we've got to get after it every day, just like it's brand new to us.
Yeah, so how do you promote that? Because it can at times feel boring to the players or even the coaches. So what do you do in those circumstances?
Well, we just lay the foundation in meetings, and when we talk to them every chance, and me when I address the team, that, hey, it's all about fundamentals, it's all about technique. Everybody at this level has got good coaching. There's good coaching, at every P5 school, P4 school. And so what's going to make the difference? It's the fundamentals. It always comes back to that. Yeah. And they buy into that. Our guys really buy into it.
Well, I think that consistency and stability over time has also shown, because you have such a great record, such a great track record of wins, and your programs, even when they haven't won, they've still been really strong programs. And so I think it's hard for anybody to come in and then argue against that. Yeah,
I would agree. And we talk about everything we've talked about so far, but if you want to know what the most important aspect of our job is, and the absolute foundation of our success is recruiting. Yeah. At the college level, it's all about recruiting. And once you get the raw material and the athletes, then you teach them the things that we've talked about. But recruiting the athletes and getting the right athletes in here is the biggest and most important part of our job. And that's I don't think you'd find a coach in the country that would disagree with it.
Yeah, is it also one of the most challenging?
Most challenging, especially with NIL,
exactly,
portal, all the things that are going on now that you didn't have to deal with even 5 years ago. And so it's completely changed. It's a whole new ball game. The things that the young athletes are looking for are not necessarily what they were looking for 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
So it's changed in that regard.
How have you had to adapt a new leadership style, or maybe the way you communicate with the NIL and the transfer?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and it's still a work in progress because the rules change literally monthly. I mean, we got new things that come and go as far as rules, and so You've just had to first of all try to amass and accumulate as many resources as you can in the NIL, because that's what it boils down to. How much do you have to work with? I mean, what's your budget going to be? And you have to allocate and appropriate that money in an intelligent manner. There's different schools of thought. Some schools have tried to pay every single person the same amount. That's not going to work, I promise you, and it didn't work. And then some schools, you have, I won't tell you what schools, but there's schools that have $35 million NIL budgets, and then there's schools that have $5 million NIL budgets. There's always been disparity in college football, and never a level playing field, but it seems to be even more pronounced now with NIL at the top of the list of, where most of these recruits, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them, and you can't blame them because it's life-changing money. I mean, so these guys, a lot of these recruits come from very meager families and don't have a lot of resources, and to say, hey, here's $2 million, or this school has $400,000. I mean, what's the guy going to choose? Sure. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. So,
can we talk about a level playing field a little bit? And just because I want to go back to 2008, if that's okay.
Okay.
2008, only undefeated team in the country, beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, we did.
One outfit.
Was it 17? What was it? 34-17? 31?
The 31-17, I think I saw. I'll go with you. But I saw 2 touchdown victory.
All right.
But you weren't recognized by the BCS as national champion.
Yeah.
Right? Which, as I'm reading this, I got taken back there, and I'm like, you got to be like. And so I'm thinking about you, right, as the coach. Like, a couple things. One is, when you think about 2008, what do you think about? And then 2, like, what was the message to your coaches and to your team? Like, if it feels unbelievably unfair, right? And so, like, I'm just curious, like, thinking back on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, we had a terrific football team. Many of those players went on to play in the NFL. And that year, the majority of the guys that we played with in that game have been in our program 4 or 5 years. I mean, that our recruit, develop, and manage mantra really has to be re-examined now, because players aren't soaking in our system for 2 or 3 years waiting for their opportunity to play. It's an instant gratification world, and if they're not playing in a year or so, they get antsy. And so that's how we made a living for years and years. Is we did a great job, not to toot our own horn, but our assistant coaches did a great job of developing talent, finding the raw material and developing that talent over a 2 or 3 year span. But that is tougher to do now because of the transfer portal. Twice a year, they're free agents, after the season and then after spring ball. And so your roster, you have to build your roster twice a year. We won't know what we're going to have in the fall until after the portal comes and goes in the spring. And so it's very challenging in that respect. But back to 2008, we had a group of guys that had been in our system for a lot of years, knew the schemes inside and out, obviously very talented players. But that's how we did it, is we'd find those diamonds in the rough, I guess you could say, those guys that, because we don't oftentimes get the 4 and 5 star kids. We get the 3 star kids that we think have a big upside. You look for the high ceilings when you're recruiting. It's not, where is that athlete now? Where is he going to be in 3 or 4 years? And so that has to be looked at a little bit more carefully now, because, like I said, with the portal, there's not a lot of guys that are willing to go that route. And sure. But we had a terrific year. We were the only undefeated team in the country, like you said. As the structure that was in place at that time was what it was, we couldn't control our own destiny. We had we played the team they put in front of us in the bowl game. We beat them, and then you're at the mercy of a committee or people voting. Now, thank goodness for the college football playoffs. And I think this really, to me, this is the first year maybe ever that we've had a true national champion, ever. You look at the 2 teams that were in the finals, Notre Dame and Ohio State. They would not have been in the 4-team format, all right, and they wouldn't have been there. Yeah. And they win it, yeah. And both of them, what were they, the 6th and the 8th seed? I can't remember what exactly their seeds were, but and I'm a proponent of a 16-team playoff. I think eventually it's going to go to that, yep. And it'll be just like an NFL model, but. Now you have a true national champion, in my opinion, whereas all those other years was just speculation.
No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, a global leader in cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams increase visibility, reduce complexity, and manage risk through its security operations platform, Gray Matter. Powered by decades of experience and streamlined by AI and automation, ReliaQuest exists to make security possible. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. How I think about this for our audience, a lot of business leaders, I think about someone's looking at a CEO, and you being the CEO essentially of this program,
essentially,
right?
Yeah. I don't get to coach much. I'm more of all the other stuff. Yeah.
But everyone is looking to you. Like, what do we do with this? Like, what do we do with this? We're undefeated, but we're not the net. We're not like
tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. Like, what's that meant? Like, how do you drum up the courage to stand in front of a bunch of broken hearts that should be celebrated, right? And say, hey guys, this is how we need to think about this.
Well, you can control the controllables, that old saying, and that's exactly the mindset that we took is, hey, we did everything that we could possibly do to build our case, and now we're at the mercy of the powers that be. And so our guys understood that, as disappointing as it was. In fact, Florida, my good friend Urban Meyer was the number one team in the country that year. I think they were 12-1. I can't remember exactly. They weren't undefeated. Yeah, there you go. And they had a terrific football team. How would we have stacked up against them? I don't know, but I would love to have tried to find out and had the opportunity to find out. But you do what you can do, you control what you can control, and then you just got to be mature enough and mentally tough enough to accept whatever that is. But again, now we're way further ahead in really determining who that national champion really is.
That message, again, is really similar, though, to what you gave your team from this last season. Hey, there's a lot of stuff out of our control. We had a lot of injuries. Again, not to make excuses, but there were a lot of factors that went into the season that we had. But if we just go back to who we are, because we have the system, we know what works, and we stick with that process, we keep working on those fundamentals, then it's the next man up mentality.
Exactly. And I think our guys did a great job of that. We were 5-7. Everybody's disappointed with that. Nobody's happy with that. But we competed every single week. Many weeks, if we'd have just had one more stop on defense, we could have very easily been 9-3 or whatever. We weren't, so it's really wasting our breath talking about it. But those guys never threw in the towel. They kept fighting, week after week. Never was there a drop off in practice habits. Just how we approached our business, and very proud of that team for that.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And I think that's a great testament to the coaching staff, because you could have also easily fallen into that, oh, woe is me, we're victims, this stinks. And you obviously didn't do that if the guys continued to fight the whole season. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they stayed engaged. They stayed, they were the last practice of the season was as good as the first practice.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's how it was.
So I'm curious, and I love this. You wore the right sweatshirt for this next question.
Yeah,
Utah man am I.
Yeah.
Over the years, you've had a lot of offers to leave. A lot of different schools have reached out. NFL have given you job offers, and you keep staying here. You keep choosing Utah. Why?
It's a great place. I'm not a grass is always greener guy on the other side of the fence type of thing. I'm not in it for, first of all, my family is very important to me. And typically, I've been here, 21 years as the head coach and 30-something as the assistant. Most coaches in a 20-year span will have been at 10 or 12 different schools and dragged their family across the country around. I just didn't think that was fair to my family, first of all. University of Utah is a great spot. I love this university. They've treated me very well. Utah's a great place to raise a family. I think Salt Lake City is one of the best kept secrets in the country.
I know, you just let it out.
Yeah, I know. Strike that. I'm an avid skier. I mean, that's obviously not the prime reason I'm here, but that certainly is something that I enjoy. But I've just had so much love for the community and the state and the university. It's just been really, and I don't look back at all and think, I wish, should, woulda, shoulda, coulda, but because I don't have any regrets, no regrets at all, and I plan on making this my last, my one and only stop as a head coach, and then just ride off into the sunset.
I think this is awesome because, talking about your family and the community, it fits into the family atmosphere that you have here.
It does,
in the program.
very well. It's a great fit. Good point. Yeah.
That's really good. I can't think of a more demanding job than an NCAA Division I coach.
There's not many more, for sure.
How do you manage being a great husband, being a great dad, being a great grandfather, right? Like how do you manage that with an extremely demanding job?
Yeah, it's tough to balance that. And any way you cut it, there's going to be sacrifices made. And my wife was essentially a single parent for, a lot of the time, because I'm just so wrapped up, and every coach is wrapped up in the season, and you're working 70, 80-hour weeks during the season. Then the season's over, and you think, oh, now you get time off. No, you go jump right into recruiting. And so what I've tried to do is carve out as much time as I can for my assistants and myself to be with family. Family's always welcome in the building, at practice, come eat dinner with us. So I think we've done the best job that we can possibly do to strike as good a balance as we can, but it's still, any way you cut it, there's sacrifice to be made, and you know that going in, and if you're not willing to make that sacrifice, you're in the wrong profession.
Yeah, and I love what you said right there at the end, where you know that going in, right? I think that's a big part of it. Like, if you want to be world-class at what you do in any demanding job, like, you got to know what you're getting into, and your spouse, kids, everybody's got to know it, right? She
better be on board. There's two types of coaches' wives, really good ones and ex. And that's it. There's nothing in between. They either get it and they understand it and they support it, or they can't figure it out, and it's not going to be, it's not going to last.
Well, and I can attest, Jamie's tough as nails.
Tough
herself,
as nails,
so,
absolutely. My mom was tough as nails. She was married to a coach. My dad coached for many, many years, and so I think, and we were high school sweethearts. So she saw that and was really prepared when I became a coach, because she has seen the sacrifices that my own mom had made, and so it wasn't like something that hit her right in the face. It was brand new.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when I look for coaches, and particularly guys that just want to break into the profession, graduate assistants or whatever, I say, you better, I meet with their wives as well, because they better both be on board.
Nice.
Because, and I try to educate them. So, okay, now here's what to expect. It's going to be 10 o'clock on a Monday night, and he's not home, and you're going to say, what could he possibly be doing? Well, you could literally work here 24 hours a day and still find things to do. You'd never run out of things to do. So just making sure they understand the sacrifice and what this job entails going in, so they prepare them as best we can for the
I love
shock.
that. Keep coming back to family, right?
Yeah.
Just focusing on the family and
Exactly.
including everyone and making sure everyone's on board. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's really insightful in that you bring the spouse along too, right? I think that's incredibly important. I think about what we've done in baseball in the past, where a lot of times we'll bring in the players' wives, right, to help them understand, like, because there's not really a playbook for this is how you be a Division I football coach. There's not a playbook for, like, this is how you be really a professional athlete. Like, there's so many challenges and things you got to adapt to, and the pressure and the demand, and because it's not a job, it's a lifestyle, right? And so to help just the spouses and the kids, help them understand it, and that's such a huge part of it for sure.
It's completely all consuming. It consumes you. Yeah.
But that's what makes it so freaking fun.
Right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so meaningful.
That's why you got to love it. You got to love what you're doing.
It's a competitive arena. The playing, there's no substitute for playing, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go into your program experienced a couple really tragic, devastating losses, right? 2 players within 10 months of each other. And then not long after that, your director of football's 14-month-old passed away. It's been really rough. And you've come up with this motto of 22% better. And that is now plastered all over this building. It's on players' helmets. There's a moment of silence or a moment of gratitude at the games now, and the pictures are up on the scoreboard or on the big screen. It's really become central to this program. Could you talk a little bit about that and how you took those tragedies and turned them into something that bonded the team in a way that nothing else could have bonded them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's no blueprint or game plan to handle something like that.
No.
You just hope that never happens to anybody, but unfortunately it does. It happened to us. It was the most trying circumstance and trying event of my career. Obviously, nothing even came close. And to try to navigate through that, you really lean on each other. It brought that team so close together. We really formed a special bond. And we've done everything we can to keep that alive, keep the memory of Ty and Aaron alive. We have a saying here: they're gone but never forgotten. And so we just like you said, we have reminders throughout the building, and we're to the point now where I'm not sure we have many guys left on the team that, if any, that knew Ty and Aaron, because it was 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been just an educational part of what we do in the fall camp is to have it. We take a team meeting and we devote it to Ty and Aaron and talking about them, their background, who they were, what they were all about, to try to educate the players that just didn't know who they were.
So talk about where 22% better.
Yeah, that was Coach Sharif Shah, I believe, made that quote or that analogy, and I believe it was at one of the funerals of the two young men. I think it was Ty Jordan's, to dedicate yourself to become 22% better, and we use that in a lot of ways. For example, we run 20/20s to warm up for some of the practices. We changed that to 22s, and so everywhere we can interject it and make it magnified and help the players remember.
Yeah. So what our listeners probably aren't aware is that is the jersey number of Ty Jordan, and then Aaron Lowe took on that number after Ty passed away. And then Aaron passed away, and so that number 22 has become really significant.
Right.
So that's where that comes from.
Very significant. Every year we have a Ty Jordan Aaron Lowe scholarship fund, and the team votes each fall on who is going to represent that scholarship for Ty and Aaron, and we'll vote that this fall, and that's something that another way to keep the memory.
Yeah. Well, I really respect that you do that and you keep them alive, and, using that to bond the team in some way and coming together and saying this could have torn us apart, but we're going to remember them and to honor them by bringing us together and playing harder for them. So I really love that you were able to do that in such unbelievably difficult circumstances. Yeah.
Coach, thanks for sharing that. And it kind of goes back to what you mentioned early on about how if all they learn is football here, you kind of failed them, right?
Exactly.
And so, but on top of that, what Doc provided here in the notes is that University of Utah, this program ranks first in draft picks in the Big 12 over the last 10 years. And so I think it's such an interesting paradox to think about how you pour into these young men and you develop them as men, with obviously a focus on football, but that's not the only focus, and how that ultimately turns into guys having the opportunity to play at the next level. And so when you kind of unpack that and you really think about that, what are some of the things that you really focus on? You're like, we need to really instill this value, or we need to instill this into this individual because it's going to help them be great in life.
Yeah, well, first of all, in the recruiting process, we tell them, if you don't have the burning desire to play in the National Football League, this is not the program for you. We want guys that have the burning desire to be at the highest level and compete at the highest level in everything they do, whether it's the weight room, the classroom, on the field. We want those guys that want to achieve and get to the next level. And so if you're a guy that says, hey, I want to play 3 or 4 years of college football and then move on and do something else, you don't belong here. So we want those guys that have that burning desire to be the best that they can be. Our coaches, as I mentioned, do a great job of teaching these guys and developing their skills and their talent level. And again, it starts with recruiting, because if you don't have certain measurables, it's going to be tough to make it to the NFL. So we look for those measurables in the recruiting process, and it's always a projection, like I said. And you look at a kid and say, is this guy, can I foresee him in 3 or 4 or 5 years, being able to play in the NFL with what he has physically? And so if you don't see that, don't recruit him, because it's not going to happen. And there's certain guys, they have that look, that NFL look. Now they may be 50 pounds away, but they have the frame to put that on, and they run well enough and all that. So you got to find the raw material and develop it. But we're very proud of our developmental process, and there actually is services that rank programs and in their ability to develop players, and we're consistently in the top 10 pretty much every year of those services as far as a program that will develop you to your maximum potential.
Wow, I love that. And with that idea of development in mind, how do you find coaches? Because you mentioned earlier you coach the coaches. So what do you look for in coaches when you're bringing in new coaches to the program, to adhere to the standard, to adhere to how important family is? What are some of those things that you
ICE. I know ICE has a different meaning now.
Yeah.
A totally different meaning.
Wait, what? You bring ICE in?
Yeah. Wait. Intelligence, character, and energy. ICE. So again, it's not, we had that ICE long before we had the government ICE or whatever's going on. But that's what I look for. we believe that we can, you have to have a certain amount of experience at the P4 level. You better have some seasoning, and you're not a first-year coach. You've been a few places. But if the guy is intelligent, first and foremost, he can learn. He can continue to grow as a coach because he has the aptitude. That's what I look for. Character. You want a high character guy. These guys are role models for these young men, and the last thing you want is an intelligent, bad character guy, because that's a dangerous combination. And so, if you have the wherewithal, the capacity mentally, the character to live your life and conduct yourself appropriately, and with the guys you're working with and with your family, and that's a big part of it, is just being high character in all aspects of your life. And then energy. You can't be a smart guy with good character that's just a bump on a log. I mean, you got to be energetic, and the players feed off of passion and energy from the coaches. And so if you can get those three things in a coach, I believe that we can continue to mold you and teach you other things that you need to know, but you better have those basic things, the ice factor.
So I know we're getting up against it. I have one follow-up question to that.
Are we done already?
Our last question.
We're just getting going.
Hey, we can
I'm just
keep
getting
going.
warmed up.
We can keep going as long as you want.
Let's stick to the script.
Yeah, okay. But one follow-up question on that. I feel like when you're interviewing or you're assessing talent for your assistant coaches, you can figure out intelligence and energy pretty easily and quickly. How do you measure character?
Yeah, you got to do a deep dive, background, talk to people that they've worked for, and preferably people that you know well, because, you don't want to, some guy just being a salesman. Oh, yeah, the guy's great.
Yeah, just so they can get rid of him.
Exactly. Promote him right out of your program. Yeah. And so that's a big part of it, and I do a deep dive on every hire we make and making sure that we've done our homework. You're never going to be 100%. So, somebody's going to fall through the cracks, or you're going to misjudge. But you can, problem solving is 90% anticipation. You can anticipate problems before they become problems, and that's part of it, is by doing a deep dive on everyone you bring into the program, and that includes everyone, not just the coaches. Anyone that's going to have contact with our players.
Oh, I know you did one on me too.
I did one on you.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to make sure
Absolutely.
that they're the type of people and have the type of values and ethics that you're looking for and trying to instill in your guys.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so last question. Yep. So we asked this question of all of our guests. It's our last question of everyone. So our podcast is called No Show Dogs, because it's not about looking good, it's about being good.
A show dog, not being okay, I got you. Having substance over style.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. Like, we don't care if you're out there looking
I read
pretty.
a book about that. There's some with great leaders, style and charisma and all that takes a back seat to
exactly, like being willing to be consistent, to get dirty, to do the work, whatever it takes. Even if it looks ugly, you're getting the job done. Like, that's the idea. And so part of that entails, being willing to do those things, to get dirty, to do the hard things that maybe don't make you look pretty, but you're out there doing them. And so our last question that we ask everyone is, reflecting on your career up to this point, what were some of the things that you were willing to do that maybe others weren't, that has helped you be successful?
Well, I'm not sure if it's what I was willing to do that others weren't willing to do, but I think being consistent is probably right at the top or near the top of the list. Being, we ask our players to be mentally, physically tough. You got to be the same as a coach, and you can't, you got to be the same guy every day. The players thrive on consistency and knowing what the expectations are going to be every day. You can't be Mr. Joke Around Buddy one day and things are lax, and the next day be a drill sergeant. You've got to have that consistency, and the players need to know what to expect when they walk in the facility every day. And I demand that from all of our coaching staff, to be very consistent. Demand it from the players. That's another thing we talk about a lot, is being the same guy every day, not being up and down, the peaks and valleys. And so I think that being able to, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to adhere to it and maintain it. And I think that in this program, we do a pretty darn good job of maintaining that level of consistency, making our demands consistent on a daily basis, treating the players with respect on a daily basis. And the players, if they, the old adage, if they, they won't care, what you know until they know that you care, type of thing. And so that really applies. And I just think that, our assistant coaches have done a great job of really connecting with our players and having our players understand that, hey, we have your best interest in mind. And we're going to coach you hard, but we're going to love you up when you need to be loved up. But you got to be open to and willing to accept hard coaching and understand that the the process and the path to success, there's going to be some pretty high demanding things asked of you along the way, and you better be willing to step up and answer the bell.
Fantastic.
Coach Whitt, this is great. We're just so grateful for you taking the time today. We know how busy you are, and so we just really appreciate you taking the time to just share with us and share with our audience just your hard-earned wisdom along the way.
Okay, well, hope there was something of value in there. We'll see.
There was a lot of value in there.
Really good. Yeah, Coach, thanks again, and go out and make it a great day.